Aemeath is shaping up to be one of the most anticipated releases in Wuthering Waves, and for good reason. As a fusion-type sword user, she brings explosive damage, fast-paced combos, and a kit that's already putting her in the conversation for best DPS in the entire game. In this video, we're breaking down everything you need to know about Aemeath. Know her fusion damage works, what makes her sword style so lethal, and why her numbers and mechanics are turning heads even before release. Whether you're planning to pull on day one or just want to understand her true damage ceiling, this guide will cover her best builds, optimal stats, team synergies, and gameplay tips to help you get the most out of her kit.
The savior rises.
Aemeath looks complicated, like really complicated. But once you strip away the noise, her entire kit revolves around one idea: momentum. She isn't a character you play in bursts. She's a character you play with rhythm. And if you keep up that rhythm, she becomes one of the most dangerous fusion DPS units in Wuthering Waves. Her damage ramps up the longer you stay clean, chaining attacks, switching forms, and managing resources without breaking flow. Drop the combo, and you feel it immediately. Aemeath's defining mechanic is her form switch between herself and her mech. This isn't a stance change for flavor, it's for damage engine. Both forms share stats, but each one has its own attack strings, and the magic happens when you weave between them. Through sync strikes, Aemeath can swap forms mid-combo, skipping weaker openings and jumping straight into high-value attacks. When played correctly, it feels less like switching characters and more like extending a single endless combo. This is why Aemeath doesn't want to reset to neutral. Every clean transition pushes her closer to stronger states. Sync strikes are what make her kit feel fluid instead of clunky. After specific normal attacks, heavy attacks, or dodge counters, you can trigger Armament Merge or Call of Dawn, dealing fusion damage and swapping forms instantly. Think of these as combo shortcuts. They let you reposition, adapt, or recover from pressure without losing DPS. Smell a string? Sync Strike brings you right back into the loop. This flexibility is why Aemeath scales so hard with player skill. Once you reach stage 4 attacks in either form, Aemeath enters Seraphic Duo. This is the payoff window. During Seraphic Duo, Aemeath can spend synchronization rate to cast Seraphic Duo Overture or Encore, which deal liberation damage and represents a massive chunk of her output. Here's the key part: you don't want to enter Seraphic Duo unprepared. Good Aemeath players stockpile resources before this state, then immediately unload instead of scrambling to build meter during the window. Aemeath has two resonance modes, and they fundamentally change how she plays. Tune Rupture mode is about ramping damage. You stack Rapturous Trail, then detonate it through enhanced Seraphic Duets. This mode shines in longer fights and multi-target scenarios where the extra damage instances really add up. Fusion mode burst, on the other hand, is pure explosion damage. You build fusion trail stacks, then consume them to trigger massive burst reactions. This mode is ideal for bosses in short DPS windows. Choosing the wrong mode doesn't make Aemeath weak, but choosing the right one makes her terrifying. Aemeath's Resonance Liberation Heavenfall Edict is where everything peaks. Casting Overdrive puts her into enhanced states that boosts resource gain and empower Seraphic Duet. If you fully cap synchronization rate and resonance rate, you unlocked Heavenfall Edict Finale. Finale is not just a big hit, it's a commitment. Trigger it too early and you cut your burst short. Wait too long and you risk losing buffs or timing. But when executed properly, Finale ends the fight, or at least decides it. Even though Aemeath is a main DPS, she doesn't leave the team empty-handed. Her outro skill grants up to 20% all damage amplification depending on her resonance mode. making her an excellent pivot character. On top of that, her inherent skills grant stacking crit damage when teammates trigger Tune Rupture or Fusion Burst. Translation, she performs best in teams that actively feed her mechanics, not passive lineups. Stat-wise, Aemeath scales off attack, but her kit heavily favors crit rate and crit damage because so many of her abilities hit multiple times. Consistency matters more than chasing one massive number. Her mechanics amplify damage neutrally. Your job is to make sure those hits crits. So, let's go into how you actually build this character.
When choosing a weapon for Aemeath, everything comes down to how well it supports her unique combat design of dual forms and resource-driven burst damage. To perform at her peak, a weapon must meet 3 non-negotiable requirements, all dictated by her kit. The core requirement 1 is maximizing resonance liberation damage. This is the single most important factor. The overwhelming majority of Aemeath's damage comes from abilities classified as resonance liberation damage, specifically the ultimate skill, Heavenly Fall Edict Finale, and her core enhanced skill, Duet of Seraphic Plumes, Overture, and Encore. Because these skills define her damage profile, her weapon must directly amplify resonance liberation damage or provide multipliers that scale exponentially well with it. Core requirement number 2 is smoothing the resource cycle. Aemeath's gameplay revolves around managing 2 separate resources, the synchronization rate and the resonance rate. As a result, weapons that provide energy regeneration, attack speed, or skill damage bonuses greatly improve her rotation, consistency, and overall feel. And the core requirement 3 is a strong attack and crit foundation. As a main DPS, Aemeath needs reliable baseline stats. Weapons that offer attack, crit rate, and crit damage form the backbone of her damage output, especially when external buffs or niche multipliers are unavailable. In short, the weapon selection logic is simple. Maximize burst damage. Can it smooth resource generation? And does it provide strong base stats? The best weapon choice is going to be Aemeath's signature weapon, Everbright Polestar, because it provides an inherent 24.3 crit damage. And through its passive, it increases all attribute damage by 12%. When shocked deflection, the resonance liberation damage ignores 32% of the defense, and the resonance liberation damage ignores 10% melt resistance, lasting for 7 seconds. Everbright Polestar is tailor-made for Aemeath. Its base stats provide an excellent crit damage foundation for a main DPS. The passive grants Defense Ignore and Res Ignore, 2 of the rarest and most powerful damage multipliers in Wuthering raids, and against high defense enemies, these effects massively outperform standard attack percent or damage bonus effects. With 32% defense ignore and 10% melt resistance ignore, this weapon pushes Aemeath's core burst skills to an entirely higher tier of damage. If you have an access to her signature, this is unquestionably her best option. While Emerald of Genesis doesn't spike burst damage as aggressively as her signature weapon, it excels at something equally important: rotation stability. The 12.8% energy regeneration directly addresses Aemeath's biggest bottleneck: energy consistency. It allows her to execute burst cycles more freely without worrying about being skill locked or delayed. If you don't own Everbright Polestar, Emerald of Genesis is her best all-around 5-star option. It may not produce the highest single burst numbers, but the smoother rotations and higher burst frequency translate into excellent real-world damage. Red Spring is a powerful but high skill ceiling weapon. Rather than improving energy flow, it heavily rewards on-field normal attack usage and frequent character swapping. The optimal playstyle is enter with Aemeath and stack normal attack bonuses, swap to a teammate to trigger the 40% bonus, quickly return to Aemeath and chain normal attacks into skills and burst within the buff window. If you enjoy active swapping and have strong mechanical execution, Red Spring can deliver extremely high damage. However, it demands precise rotation,
and is less forgiving than Emerald of Genesis. Feather Edge is the best 4-star option for Aemeath, and it's not even close. It directly buffs Resonance Liberation damage, perfectly matching her damage profile. Both Heavenfall Edict Finale and Duet of Seraphic Plumes benefit from this bonus, and the trigger condition is simple: use her ultimate. Among all 4-star options, this is the only weapon that consistently and directly boosts her core burst damage. For free-to-play players or those without a strong 5-star option, Feathered Edge is a true best-in-slot tier alternative. Aemeath runs in Toon Rupture mode, where her Resonance Liberation damage reaches its highest potential against priority targets and bosses. Lene is a key enabler for Aemeath's burst damage. Her outro skill provides a massive Resonance Liberation damage buff to the next character, which Aemeath fully capitalizes on. And Lene also applies Toon effects, directly triggering Aemeath's inherent skill conditions. Mornier is an essential component of this team. She triggers Toon Rupture Interfered, which is required to maximize stacks for Aemeath's inherent skill between the stars. She also provides consistent healing and additional Toon application to maintain rotation stability. Lene and Mornier create a seamless setup loop, consistently applying Toon effects that Aemeath converts into devastating burst damage. This composition fully unlocks her kit, making it her highest damage and most synergetic team. Aemeath switches to Fusion Burst mode, specializing in wide area damage and multi-target encounters. Chisa is the cornerstone of this team. In addition to healing, Chisa increases the maximum Fusion Burst stack limit by +3, dramatically amplifying the damage of each Fusion Burst explosion. The Flex DPS spot is reserved for characters who can consistently apply Fusion Burst effects. Lene currently serves as a strong transitional option due to her synergy. For a Fusion-only team, Aemeath can freely switch between Toon Rupture or Fusion Burst mode depending on the content. Lupa provides powerful universal fusion damage buffs, significantly increasing Aemeath's damage regardless of her chosen mode, and Mornier supplies healing and can trigger Toon Rupture effects, which Aemeath, while in Toon Rupture mode, can fully capitalize on, and her fusion element also activates Lupa's team-wide buffs. And that brings us to the end of Aemeath's complete build guide. With her fusion sword kit centered around Toon Rupture, strong on-field uptime, and high burst windows, Aemeath stands out as one of the most powerful damage dealers in Wuthering Waves. When it comes to gearing, prioritizing high attack swords that amplify her skill and burst damage allows her kit to scale extremely well into late game content. Pairing that with optimized echo sets that enhance fusion damage, resin skill output, and overall crit consistency, and Aemeath reaches her full damage potential. Combined with the right team support and clean rotations, Aemeath delivers exceptional single target damage and remains flexible across the variety of team compositions. If this guide helped you optimize your Aemeath, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more in-depth Wuthering Waves build guides and updates. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all within the next one.